Pet shop CEO mocks Manny Pacquiao for his mutt and had no idea he was the owner. A pet shop CEO mocking a customer, insulting his dog, laughing at him. But that customer was Manny Pacquiao, and the CEO had no idea. This real story is going to blow your mind from start to finish. An arrogant businessman who thought he was untouchable, a world champion boxer who values loyalty above everything, and a confrontation that changed everything for both men forever. Stay until the end because what Manny did next was something nobody expected, and it teaches us all a powerful lesson about respect, humility, and treating everyone with dignity, no matter who they are. Beverly Hills, California, year 2015. The city was known worldwide as the playground of the rich and famous. Mansions worth tens of millions of dollars lined the streets. Luxury cars were everywhere you looked. Ferrari, Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce, Bentley, designer stores on every corner. Rodeo Drive was packed with celebrities shopping for clothes that cost more than most people make in a year. This was a place where money talked and everyone knew it. In the heart of Beverly Hills was a pet shop that catered exclusively to the wealthy elite. It wasn't just any pet shop. This place was legendary among the rich and famous. It was called Prestige Pets Beverly Hills. The store was massive. Over 10,000 square feet of pure luxury for animals. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Marble floors so polished you could see your reflection. Gold fixtures everywhere. The place looked more like a five-star hotel than a pet store. Prestige Pets didn't sell regular pet supplies. Everything was designer. Everything was exclusive. Everything was insanely expensive. Dog collars made with real diamonds that cost $5,000. Cat beds made from Italian leather that cost $3,000. Custom-made dog houses that looked like miniature mansions costing $20,000 or more. Food bowls made from sterling silver. Leashes made from exotic materials. The store even had a grooming salon that charged $500 for a single session. It was absolutely ridiculous. But the wealthy customers didn't care about the price. They wanted the best for their pets. Or more accurately, they wanted everyone to know they could afford the best. The owner and CEO of Prestige Pets was a man named Richard Aldrich Pemberton III. Everyone called him Rick. He was 52 years old, came from old money. His family had been wealthy for generations. His grandfather had made a fortune in real estate. His father had multiplied that fortune through investments. Rick himself had never really worked a hard day in his life. He had inherited millions, used some of that money to open Prestige Pets 15 years ago. The business was successful because of the location and the clientele, not because Rick was particularly good at business. Rick was tall, about 6'2", always dressed in expensive, custom-tailored suits. Today he was wearing a navy blue Tom Ford suit that cost $8,000, white dress shirt, red silk tie, Italian leather shoes polished to perfection. His hair was perfectly styled with product that cost more than most people's haircuts. He wore a Rolex Presidential on his wrist. Cost him $45,000. He had that look of someone who had never struggled, never worried about money, never had to work for anything. Everything had been handed to him on a silver platter his entire life. But the worst thing about Rick wasn't his wealth. Plenty of wealthy people are decent human beings. The worst thing about Rick was his attitude. He was extremely arrogant, looked down on everyone he considered beneath him, which was almost everyone. He treated his employees like servants, talked down to them constantly, paid them minimum wage while he drove a different luxury car every day of the week. He was rude to delivery people, dismissive of anyone who worked in service industries. In his mind, there were two types of people in the world, the wealthy elite like himself, and everyone else who didn't matter. Rick especially looked down on people who came into his store with what he called common animals. By common, he meant any dog or cat that wasn't a purebred from an expensive breeder. If you brought in a rescue dog or a mutt, Rick would make snide comments. He would insult the animal right in front of the owner, would suggest they should get a real dog, would make jokes to his employees loud enough for the customer to hear. He thought it was funny, thought he was being clever and witty. In reality, he was just being cruel and showing his complete lack of character. His employees hated him but needed the jobs. Beverly Hills was expensive to live in. They put up with his behavior because they had bills to pay. Some had tried to stand up to him over the years. Those people were fired immediately. Rick made it clear that if you worked for him, you did things his way. You laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny. You agreed with everything he said. You never questioned him. It was his kingdom, and he was the king. Manny Pacquiao at this time in 2015 was one of the most famous athletes in the entire world. He had just fought Floyd Mayweather a few months earlier in what was called the fight of the century. Even though he lost that fight, Manny was still considered one of the greatest boxers of all time. He had won world titles in 8 different weight divisions, something no other boxer in history had ever done. He had been in countless legendary fights, had knocked out some of the toughest fighters on the planet, was known for his incredible speed, devastating power, and warrior heart that never quit. But outside the ring, Manny was completely different from his fighting persona. He was humble, soft-spoken, deeply religious, gave millions of dollars to charity, built homes for poor families in the Philippines, paid for strangers' medical bills, helped anyone who needed it, never bragged about his accomplishments, never acted like he was better than anyone else. Despite being worth hundreds of millions of dollars, despite being world famous, despite being a living legend, Manny treated everyone with respect and kindness. From billionaire businessmen to homeless people on the street, everyone got the same respect from Manny. Manny had recently bought a house in Los Angeles. He spent a lot of time in America for training and business. The house was nice, but not as extravagant as you might expect from someone with his wealth. Manny didn't need to show off. He had a wife and kids who he loved more than anything, and he had dogs. Manny loved dogs, always had. Growing up poor in the Philippines, he remembered the street dogs, the strays that nobody wanted. He felt a connection with them, understood what it was like to be overlooked and counted out. So when he had money, he always adopted rescue dogs, never bought from breeders, always gave homes to dogs that needed them. One of his dogs was a mixed breed he had rescued from a shelter in Manila. The dog was medium-sized, had brown and white fur that was a bit scruffy, floppy ears, and the most loyal eyes you'd ever seen. Manny named him Pac-Man Jr., but everyone called him PJ. That dog loved Manny with everything he had, followed him everywhere, slept by his bed, waited by the door when Manny was gone. It was pure unconditional love. And Manny loved that dog just as much. PJ had been having some skin issues. Nothing serious, just some irritation and itching. Manny's wife suggested taking him to a vet and maybe getting some special shampoo or treatment. Manny agreed. He asked his assistant where he should go. The assistant, not knowing any better, suggested Prestige Pets because they had a vet service and grooming. The assistant thought a high-end place would be the best. Manny didn't care about high-end. He just wanted PJ to feel better, but he agreed to go there. On this particular Tuesday afternoon in October, Manny decided to take PJ to Prestige Pets himself. He didn't call ahead, didn't make an appointment, didn't send an assistant, just got in one of his cars with PJ and drove over. Manny was dressed casually, very casually, wore an old t-shirt that had a small hole near the bottom, wore faded jeans that were worn at the knees, wore simple sneakers that had seen better days, had a baseball cap pulled low over his face, wore sunglasses. He looked like a regular working-class guy. Definitely didn't look like a world-famous multi-millionaire boxer. That's exactly how Manny liked it. He hated the attention, hated when people made a fuss, just wanted to be treated like a normal person. Manny walked into Prestige Pets with PJ on a simple nylon leash, the kind you buy at any regular store for $10. The moment they walked in, a young female employee at the front desk looked up. She was about 24 years old, had been working there for 6 months, hated her job but needed the money. She looked at Manny and the dog, didn't recognize him because of the cap and sunglasses and casual clothes, just saw what looked like a regular working-class customer with a mutt. She smiled politely and asked how she could help. Manny smiled back warmly. Said his dog had been having some skin issues and he wanted to see if they could help, maybe recommend some shampoo or treatment. The employee nodded, said they could definitely help, asked him to wait a moment while she got someone from the grooming department. Manny thanked her and stood there patiently. PJ sat next to him being a good boy. Unfortunately, Rick Pemberton happened to be in the store that day. He had been in his office in the back going over some paperwork, heard voices in the front, decided to come out and see if there were any important customers he should schmooze with. He walked out from the back office into the main showroom, saw Manny standing there with PJ. looked him up and down with obvious judgment in his eyes. Rick saw the old t-shirt with the hole, saw the faded jeans, saw the cheap sneakers, saw the basic leash, saw the scruffy-looking mixed-breed dog, made an immediate assumption. This was clearly some working-class guy who had wandered into the wrong store. Probably saw the fancy exterior and thought he'd come in and look around. People like this came in occasionally. Rick hated it. This was a store for the elite, for people with real money and class, not for regular people with their common mutts. Rick walked over with a condescending smile on his face. The employee started to explain what the customer needed, but Rick cut her off with a wave of his hand. Said he'd handle this. The employee looked relieved and stepped back. She knew that tone. Knew Rick was about to be rude. Felt bad for the customer, but there was nothing she could do. Rick looked at Manny, though he still didn't know it was Manny. Said, "Welcome to Prestige Pets." Asked in a tone that was dripping with fake politeness if he could help. Manny, always polite, said yes. Explained again about his dog having skin issues. Said he was hoping to get some advice and maybe some treatment or shampoo. Rick looked down at PJ with obvious disdain. Made an exaggerated face like he smelled something bad. Then he laughed. Not a friendly laugh, a mocking laugh. He said, "Well, first let me ask you something. Did you actually mean to come to this store specifically? Or did you just wander in by accident?" Manny was confused by the question. Said no, his assistant had recommended this place. Said he heard they were good with animals. Rick laughed again. Said, "Well, yes, we are very good with animals. Real animals, purebred animals. Animals with pedigree and value, not mutts, not strays, not whatever this thing is." He gestured dismissively at PJ. Manny felt his jaw tighten. Started to feel anger rising but kept his voice calm. Said, "Excuse me, this is my dog. PJ is family." Rick rolled his eyes dramatically. Said, "Oh, I'm sure he's very special to you. But let's be honest. This is clearly a mutt. Mixed breed. No papers, no lineage. Probably picked up from some shelter or off the street. These kinds of dogs are a dime a dozen. You can find them anywhere." Manny's hands clenched into fists at his sides, but he kept his voice controlled. Said, "Yes, PJ is a rescue, and there's nothing wrong with that. Rescue dogs need love, too." Rick actually laughed out loud at that. Said, "Oh, how noble, how charitable of you. But this is Prestige Pets. We cater to a different clientele. People who appreciate quality, people who value excellence, people who can actually afford our services." He looked Manny up and down again with obvious contempt. Said, "Look, I'm going to be honest with you, and I say this to be helpful, not to be rude. You're clearly in the wrong place. This store is for Beverly Hills elite. Our clients drive here in $100,000 cars to buy diamond collars for their purebred Pomeranians and Persian cats. Our grooming sessions cost $500. Our products are designer. Everything in this store is top of the line, for top-of-the-line animals." Rick pointed at PJ again. Said your mutt there would look ridiculous with our products. It would be like putting a tuxedo on a homeless person. It just doesn't fit. My advice, go to PetSmart or Petco. Those stores are more your speed, more your budget probably. They have perfectly adequate products for perfectly adequate dogs. You'll be much happier there. And honestly, you'll save yourself a lot of money. The employee at the front desk was watching in horror. She couldn't believe Rick was being this openly rude. Other employees in the store had stopped what they were doing and were watching. Some looked uncomfortable. A couple of customers in the store were watching too. One older, wealthy woman looked disgusted by Rick's behavior but didn't say anything. Manny stood there silently for a moment. He slowly reached up and took off his sunglasses, looked Rick directly in the eyes, asked in a very calm but very serious voice if that's really how he treats all his customers. Rick, still not recognizing who he was talking to, said, "No, of course not." Said he treats his real customers with the utmost respect and care. But people who wander in off the street with mutts need to understand this isn't the place for them. Manny then took off his baseball cap. His distinctive face was now fully visible. The employee at the front desk gasped audibly. She recognized him immediately. One of the other employees dropped the product they were holding. It clattered on the marble floor. The wealthy customer who had been watching pulled out her phone and started filming. Rick still hadn't figured it out. He was too busy being smug and self-satisfied to actually look at the man's face properly. Manny said, "Let me ask you something. Do you follow boxing at all?" Rick looked confused by the question. Said, "What does boxing have to do with anything?" Said no, he doesn't follow boxing. Considers it barbaric. Prefers more civilized sports like tennis and golf. Manny nodded slowly. Said, "Well, that explains why you don't recognize me. I'm Manny Pacquiao. You could have heard a pin drop in that store." The silence was absolutely deafening. Rick's face went through several different expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, realization, shock, horror. His skin went from its normal color to pale white in about 2 seconds. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He just stood there frozen like a statue. Manny continued speaking. His voice was still calm, but there was an edge to it now. Said, "You just insulted me. Insulted my dog. Made assumptions about who I am based on my clothes. Treated me like I was beneath you, like I didn't deserve to be in your store. All because I was dressed simply, and my dog is a rescue. Do you have any idea how wrong that is?" Rick tried to stammer out an apology. Started saying, "Mr. Pacquiao, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize you." Manny cut him off. Said, "No. You're not sorry about what you did. You're sorry about who you did it to. If I really was just some working-class guy like you assumed, would your behavior have been okay then? Would insulting my dog have been acceptable?" Rick didn't know what to say. Manny continued. Said, "I've met thousands of people all over the world. Rich people, poor people, everyone in between. And I've learned something important. You can tell everything about a person's character by how they treat those they perceive as beneath them, how they treat people who can't do anything for them, how they treat service workers, how they treat animals. And what I just saw tells me everything I need to know about you." Manny looked around the store, looked at the employees who were watching. Said, "Do you treat your employees like this too? Talk down to them, make them feel small." A couple of the employees looked down at the floor. Their expressions confirmed it. Manny shook his head in disgust. He said, "You know what the saddest part is? You have everything. Money, success, a beautiful store, loyal employees who probably work hard for you, customers who trust you with their beloved pets, and you waste it all by being cruel and arrogant, by looking down on people, by thinking you're better than everyone else. That's not success. That's just being a small person with a lot of money." Manny bent down and petted PJ. The dog licked his hand. Manny smiled at his dog with pure love, then stood back up and looked at Rick. Said, "This mutt, as you called him, is worth more than this entire store, because he knows how to love unconditionally. He doesn't judge me by my clothes or my car or my bank account. He just loves me for me. That's something you'll never understand." By this time, multiple people in the store were filming on their phones. The wealthy customer who had started filming was still recording. One of the employees had their phone out. Even Rick's assistant manager, who had come out to see what was happening, was recording. This was going to be all over social media within hours. Manny said, "I'm going to do something now. I'm going to leave. I'm going to take my mutt and go to a regular pet store where they actually care about animals instead of price tags, where they judge dogs by their health and happiness instead of their pedigree. And I'm going to tell everyone I know to never come to this place. Not because you insulted me, I don't care about that, but because of how you treat regular people, how you make them feel small, how you value money over kindness." He started walking toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Said, "One more thing. You should know that I grew up with nothing. Absolutely nothing. We were so poor, we sometimes didn't eat. I slept in a cardboard box. I understand what it's like to be looked down on, to be treated like you don't matter, to be judged by your appearance. And I promised myself that if I ever became successful, I would never treat people that way. I would never forget where I came from. I would never think I was better than anyone else. That's a promise I've kept. Maybe you should think about making a similar promise." Then Manny Pacquiao walked out of Prestige Pets with PJ trotting happily beside him, got in his car and drove away, left Rick standing there absolutely mortified. The store was completely silent for several long moments. Then Rick tried to salvage the situation, tried to laugh it off, tried to say it was all a misunderstanding, but nobody was laughing. The employees looked at him with disappointment. The customers looked at him with disgust. Within 3 hours, the videos were all over social media: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere. The footage of Rick insulting PJ and making classist comments. Then the footage of Manny revealing who he was and calmly but powerfully calling Rick out. It went absolutely viral. Millions and millions of views. Celebrities started sharing it. Athletes, actors, musicians, regular people. Everyone was talking about it. The comments were overwhelmingly on Manny's side. People praised him for his humility, for standing up not just for himself but for all working-class people, for defending rescue animals, for teaching a lesson in respect and kindness. People shared their own stories of being treated poorly by arrogant business owners. The support was massive. Rick, on the other hand, was getting destroyed. People were calling him every name in the book, entitled, arrogant, classist, elitist, horrible person. The criticism was relentless. Within 24 hours, celebrities who had been customers of Prestige Pets started publicly announcing they would never shop there again, posted on social media that they were taking their business elsewhere, that they didn't support that kind of behavior. Within 48 hours, regular customers started boycotting. The store that had been busy every day was suddenly empty. Nobody wanted to be associated with it. Within a week, several of Rick's employees quit, posted on social media about how terrible he had been to work for, shared their own stories of abuse and disrespect. One employee revealed that Rick regularly made fun of customers behind their backs. Another revealed that he had refused to help a woman whose dog was having an emergency because she looked poor. The pressure kept building. Rick tried to do damage control, posted an apology video on social media. It was terrible, clearly scripted, clearly insincere. He said he was sorry if anyone was offended, not sorry for what he did. Sorry if people were offended. That's not a real apology. People saw through it immediately. The backlash got even worse. Within 2 weeks, major suppliers started pulling their products from Prestige Pets. Designer brands didn't want to be associated with the controversy. Rick tried to order new inventory, but companies were refusing to do business with him. His insurance company raised his rates significantly because of reputation damage. His landlord started getting complaints from other businesses in the area saying that Prestige Pets was hurting their reputations by association. Within a month, Rick was forced to close the store. 15 years of business destroyed in 30 days. He tried to sell it, but nobody wanted to buy a business with that kind of toxic reputation. He had to declare bankruptcy, lost millions. His reputation in Beverly Hills was completely ruined. Other business ventures he was involved in kicked him out. Country clubs revoked his membership. He became a social pariah overnight. Meanwhile, Manny didn't say anything else about the incident publicly. Didn't gloat, didn't brag, didn't do interviews about it, just went about his life, continued training, continued his charity work, continued being the humble, kind person he had always been. When reporters asked him about it, he would simply say that he hoped the man learned something, that everyone deserves respect, that material things don't determine someone's worth. PJ's skin condition got treated at a regular vet. Cost $45. The vet was kind and professional and didn't care that PJ was a mutt, just cared that he was a dog who needed help. The treatment worked perfectly. PJ was back to his healthy, happy self within 2 weeks. About 6 months after the incident, Rick tried to reach out to Manny through mutual connections, wanted to apologize properly, wanted to make amends. Manny agreed to meet him. They met at a quiet coffee shop. Rick apologized. This time it seemed genuine. Seemed like he had actually learned something. Said he had lost everything. His business, his reputation, his friends. Said it had been the worst 6 months of his life, but said maybe he needed it. Needed to lose everything to understand what really matters. Manny listened, then said, losing everything material doesn't make you a better person automatically. It's what you do after that matters. It's whether you actually change, whether you treat the next person you meet with kindness regardless of how they look or what they have. Rick said he understood, said he was trying to be better. Manny said, good. Said everyone deserves a second chance, but you have to earn it through actions, not words. They shook hands. Manny left. Rick sat there for a long time thinking about everything. He did seem to change after that. Started volunteering at animal shelters, started treating people with more respect. Never got back the wealth or status he had before, but maybe became a better person. Maybe that was more important. This story teaches us something valuable. Respect costs nothing but means everything. How you treat people when you think they can't do anything for you reveals your true character. Kindness should be given freely to everyone regardless of their appearance, their wealth, or their status. And treating animals with love and respect isn't about their breed or pedigree. It's about recognizing that they're living beings deserving of care. Manny Pacquiao could have gotten angry, could have made a scene, could have used his fame and power to destroy Rick right there in the store. But he didn't. He kept his composure, made his point clearly and powerfully with words instead of fists, showed more strength in that moment than he ever showed in any boxing ring. That's true class. That's true character. Did you know this story? What do you think about how Manny handled it? Tell me in the comments. If you like this story, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel because we bring you amazing real stories like this every week. Till next time, remember to treat everyone with respect and kindness. You never know who you're talking to, and even if they're not famous, they still deserve dignity. God bless you all.